You're probably familiar with the term farm to table. It's a concept that many restaurants have endorsed. But what about farm to glass? That's a relatively new one, but as the craft brewing business continues to grow in the region, so does the desire for craft brewers to source their ingredients locally. That's where Valley Malt of Hadley comes in. And as producer Dave Fraser found out, it's now possible for beer that is brewed locally to contain ingredients that are also grown locally.
There are 4 key ingredients in beer: water, malt, hops, and yeast. You can actually make some beers, and there are beers out there that are not made with hops, but you cannot make beer without malt. So malt is sometimes called the soul of beer.
You know, when we started Valley Malts, we were one of a handful of craft malt houses in the United States. We got some farmers on board to grow barley locally. We built a little 10-pound malting system where we could start just figuring out the malting process in our basement. And that was the first system that we installed right here in October of 2010 was when we did our first batch of malts. And then it's kind of gone more and more ever since then.
For 4 days, we allow it to sprout in stainless steel tanks. And then for the last 24 hours, we put it into what's called a kiln, which dries it down. And in that drying process, you're also able to create flavors like you would almost get when you're toasting bread. So a lot of nice aroma and flavor comes from that final process of drying down the grain. There's no catalog for us to order grain from. We really have to think about, you know, the seed that goes into the ground and the farmers that are growing that seed for us almost before we think of anything else. If they can't succeed growing it and being profitable growing grain, then we really are building a business without a strong foundation. We never really thought about not doing this business together. It was something that I think both of our skill sets were really well suited for. I was a social worker for many years prior to getting into malting, and I like relationships, I like people, I like troubleshooting and sort of solving problems.
My role really is to make sure the malt house is operating mechanically, that our malt is coming out, that it's of quality. I mean, we're both looking at the quality of our malt, but when it comes to solving the problems, troubleshooting equipment, that's a lot of my role here.
Well, I'll tell you, one of my favorite things about this job that actually came as a pleasant surprise was the physicality of it. So, like I said, I used to be a social worker, and you know, in the beginning, the work of shoveling the malt and stuff was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that I'm doing this, you know, and it feels good to be able to do that. And we tend to share a little bit of the work here at the malt house, where all of us actually step in and shovel malt every day. And we tend to find that that actually is a nice balance for most of us, that we still have work that we have to do in front of a computer or on the phone, but we also try to, you know, put our boots on and do some physical labor every day.
You know, with craft beer growing, craft malt has really grown in the past 10 years. I think there are over 100 craft malt houses in the United States now, which is pretty significant growth in itself if you consider there were probably less than 5, 8 years ago.
I love to imagine the fact that, you know, some of the fields that we're cooperating with farmers right now here in Hadley growing barley potentially had barley on them 350, 360 years ago. And we're kind of walking that path together with some of those people from the past.